For many consecutive days, livestock owners in the area repeatedly reported poultry disappearing without any clear explanation. However, as the number of missing birds continued to increase, residents began paying closer attention to what was happening around their farms. During several inspections, they directly observed a fox appearing near the poultry enclosures and quickly leaving whenever it noticed people nearby. These repeated sightings, combined with the growing losses, made it clear that measures would be needed to control the animal. After confirming the fox's presence, local residents began monitoring its activities more carefully throughout the area. After many days of observation, they noticed that the animal frequently used the same routes when traveling between natural habitats and nearby farms. Fresh tracks often appeared along fences, field edges, and areas covered with shrubs. Several narrow trails also repeatedly showed signs of fox activity. By documenting these locations, residents gradually identified the areas most frequently visited by the animal. This information later became an important foundation for control measures that were implemented. Through continued observation, many people realized that the fox had adapted remarkably well to living near human settlements. Instead of remaining only in wild areas, it increasingly approached places where food was easier to obtain. Livestock farms, food scraps, and small domestic animals became attractive targets for the predator. Once a reliable food source was found, the fox often returned to the same location repeatedly. Its adaptability allowed it to quickly become familiar with the new environment. As a result, the risk of damage to local livestock operations continued to increase over time. After identifying the main travel routes, residents began installing traps at several different locations. Areas near fences, trails, forest edges, and places where tracks were frequently found were given priority. Bait was carefully prepared and placed to attract the foxes. Throughout the setup process, the surrounding environment was left unchanged to avoid altering the animal's natural behavior. Rather than relying on only a few isolated traps, residents distributed them across multiple locations to expand the area of control. Once installation was complete, they began monitoring the system and waiting for results. After many days of maintaining control system, several traps were triggered in areas that had previously shown significant signs of fox activity. The captures indicated that the selected locations had been chosen accurately. However, residents continued to discover fresh tracks and new signs in other areas. This suggested that additional foxes were still active in the region. As a result, the trapping effort was expanded to include fields, forest edges, and routes frequently used by the animals. The goal was to minimize their ability to continue accessing livestock areas. During the following days, additional traps were triggered at locations that had been monitored in advance. Foxes appeared along their familiar travel routes and were captured when approaching the baited areas. Some animals were caught in zones situated between natural habitats and human settlements. The widespread placement of traps increased the chances of controlling foxes that remain active outside the farms themselves. These continued results demonstrated that a strategy based on understanding fox movement patterns could be effective. Residents maintained their control efforts in order to reduce future losses. After many days of implementing control measures, the number of foxes appearing around the area declined significantly compared with previous levels. As a result, attacks on livestock also became noticeably less frequent. Although foxes could still be found in the surrounding natural environment, the damage experienced by local livestock owners was reduced, helping farming activities become more stable once again.
Night falls over the cold outskirts of North America, covering poultry coops and grassy yards with a fragile sense of calm. Under the fading light of dusk, everything seems safe. But once darkness fully takes over, another kind of movement begins. Quiet to the point of being unnoticed, fast to the point of being almost invisible. Red foxes do not appear by chance, but follow routes memorized over countless nights. Raids repeat, poultry disappears without a trace, footprints come and go, and the damage continues season after season. Simple cage traps quickly reveal their limitations. They can only hold one individual, while the others learn at an astonishing speed. After just a few observations, foxes begin avoiding areas with metallic scents or unusual signs. They even change their movement timing, taking longer routes to completely bypass danger zones. farmers gradually realize the problem is not the number of traps, but the approach itself. It cannot be handled piece by piece, but must directly target the animal's movement habits. The control process does not begin with setting traps, but with observation. Small trails along fences, footprints pressed into mud, and locations where poultry is repeatedly attacked, all are carefully recorded. Unlike wild boars that move in large groups, foxes operate alone or in pairs, yet remain extremely loyal to familiar routes. And those routes become the key. Instead of placing traps randomly, every position is selected based on where the fox will certainly pass. Once the locations are determined, foothold traps are deployed. Steel traps lie low against the ground, carefully concealed beneath a layer of soil and dry leaves. From the outside, there is no sign of a mechanical device beneath. Each trap is secured with a strong cable, anchored to a steel stake driven deep into the ground to ensure it cannot be dragged away. Every detail is handled with precision. No foreign scent, no visible difference from the natural surroundings. Next comes bait placement. Not to attract from a distance like large trapping systems, but to create a precise stopping point. A small amount of bait is placed directly above the trigger point, just enough to make the fox stop, sniff, and take one more step. That single step activates the mechanism. For an animal as cautious as a fox, every factor must be calculated carefully, from wind direction and bait placement to the natural appearance of the camouflage. As night falls, the area becomes silent. But it is not peaceful. It is the peak activity period for foxes. Along a familiar route, one individual appears. It moves slowly, stopping frequently to check the air. Everything seems normal. No strange scent, no sign of danger. It moves closer, step by step, and then places its paw exactly where it has been prepared. The trigger activates in an instant. A metallic snap closes, quick and decisive. The fox reacts immediately, jerking back, twisting its body in an attempt to escape. But the trap has already secured its front leg. Not with brute force, but with precise pressure, enough to hold without causing serious injury. It pulls, it twists, but the anchored cable renders every effort useless. Before leaving, the trap site is restored to its original state. The soil is covered again, scent is controlled, and all signs of interference are erased. Because for foxes, even the smallest change is enough to make them avoid an area forever. The success of this method does not lie in catching a single individual, but in maintaining the invisibility of the system over many consecutive nights. In the end, farmers understand that foothold traps are not a quick solution, but a strategy that demands patience and precision. There is no place for luck in this process. Only observation, a deep understanding of behavior, and placing the right point at the right time. When all these elements come together, silent intrusions gradually disappear, restoring the quiet that once belonged to the land.
Over several consecutive days, the livestock farm began showing unusual signs around the fences and the paths behind the barns. A number of poultry disappeared within a short period, making the farmer realize this was no longer normal loss as before. Small footprints repeatedly appeared on the soft ground, all following the same familiar direction of movement. Some patches of grass near the coop were also dug up overnight without a clear cause. After closer observation, the farmer suspected that a fox had been entering the area and was repeatedly returning to search for food. After noticing the continuous signs, the farmer began closely monitoring the routes around the livestock area to determine the fox's movement patterns. The animal often followed fence edges, narrow paths, or areas with dense vegetation to avoid being detected during its approach. Repeated footprints in the same locations indicated that the fox had established familiar routes around the farm. Some flattened grass patches and disturbed soil further helped identify the main activity zone before setting up an appropriate trapping system. As the signs became clearer, the farmer began deploying traps at locations where the fox was suspected to frequently pass in previous days. Areas near fences, narrow paths, and dense vegetation edges were prioritized as they matched the animal's habitual movement routes. Bait with a strong scent was prepared to increase the likelihood of attracting the fox to the trap locations. Throughout the setup process, the surrounding environment was kept unchanged to avoid creating disturbances that might alert the fox and cause it to switch routes around the farm. The trap positions were also carefully checked before being put into long-term use. The main reason the fox kept returning to this area was the availability of food around the livestock farm over time. As natural habitats shrank, foxes were forced to move closer to human settlements to find more accessible food sources. Poultry, small animals, and leftover feed became easy targets for the fox over many consecutive days. After noticing increasing losses, the farmer began organizing inspections and patrols along pathways, fences, and dense vegetation areas to prevent further intrusions into the farm. After setting the traps, the farmer continued adjusting their positions based on new signs appearing around the livestock area in the following days. Some traps were moved directly onto routes frequently used by the fox instead of remaining in fixed positions for too long. The surrounding environment was also kept natural to avoid altering the animal's behavior during its movement and foraging. At the same time, the trap system was regularly checked to ensure it remained stable, secure, and unaffected by environmental factors or other animals in the area. After some time, trap inspections were carried out regularly in the early morning or during quieter periods when the area was easier to observe. At trap sites, the farmer found signs such as disturbed soil, flattened grass, or small objects slightly shifted from their original positions. These indicators suggested that the fox had approached the area and investigated the bait placed inside the traps. Based on the real situation, the farmer continued adjusting the setup to improve control efficiency and reduce long-term damage to the entire livestock farm. After many days of monitoring and more suitable trap adjustments, the frequency of fox returns to the livestock area gradually decreased. The farmer continued regular inspections to protect the livestock and maintain long-term stability across the entire farm.
It all began when chickens on a farm started disappearing day after day without anyone knowing why. There were no witnesses, no clear traces, and no unusual sounds recorded during the night. Every morning, the owner would wake up to find fewer chickens and a growing sense of concern. But the security cameras revealed a completely different story. The culprit was neither rushing its attacks nor appearing by chance. It had been observing the area for several nights, memorizing every route, and only moving when everything became completely quiet. What surprised the owner most was that the animal seemed to know exactly how to approach the chicken coop without being detected. That was the moment the trapping operation began. Foxes are predators that are primarily active at night. They usually leave their shelters when the surrounding area becomes quiet and human activity decreases. On farms with weak protective measures, poultry coops can quickly become an attractive food source. Once a fox discovers a reliable source of food, it often remembers a location and returns repeatedly using the same route. This is why many farmers only realize there is a problem after their poultry numbers begin to decline over time. After confirming the fox's presence, the farmer continued monitoring the cameras for several consecutive nights. The footage showed that the animal appeared at almost the same time every night. Once its travel route was identified, the next step was selecting a trap location and using bait such as chicken, sheep, or goat to attract it. On many farms, metal cage traps are commonly used because they are easy to manage and suitable for areas close to homes. The effectiveness of trapping does not depend on the number of traps, but on their accuracy. One trap placed in the right location is often far more valuable than several traps placed randomly. However, setting traps does not mean monitoring can stop. Cameras continue operating every night to record any changes in the animal's behavior. If its travel route changes, the trap location must be adjusted accordingly. In many cases, once access to the chicken coop becomes more difficult, the frequency of fox visits begins to decline. The combination of observation and continuous adjustment allows farmers to stay proactive rather than simply reacting after losses have already occurred. In addition to traps and cameras, many farms also use guard dogs to strengthen their defenses. Dogs can detect the presence of unfamiliar animals from a considerable distance and immediately provide a warning. Their presence makes foxes more cautious when approaching livestock areas. Some livestock guardian breeds are even trained to patrol around the coop during the night. When foxes realize an area is being regularly guarded, they often choose to leave rather than continue risking an approach. Alongside control measures, reinforcing farm structures also plays an important role. Fences should be buried deep enough to prevent animals from digging underneath. Coop doors must be securely locked before nightfall. Leftover feed and organic waste around livestock areas should also be cleaned up regularly to avoid attracting wildlife. When food becomes harder to access, the likelihood of foxes returning decreases significantly. In addition to cage traps, some regions also use specialized traps placed directly along fox travel routes. Regardless of the method used, the ultimate goal remains the same: minimizing losses to livestock while maintaining a balance between farming activities and the surrounding environment. If you found this story interesting, leave a comment and share your thoughts. Don't forget to follow the channel to discover more real-life stories about trapping operations, wildlife management efforts, and rural life, where people and nature continue to coexist every day.
Silently like a criminal. Yet the dole is classified as
As you can see,
Imagine a farmer waking up at dawn and finding nothing but scattered feathers behind the chicken coop. There were no loud noises during the night. No fences had been broken. Yet in just a few short hours, dozens of chickens had vanished. The culprit was the red fox, one of the most cunning predators in the British countryside. These animals move almost silently, use darkness to their advantage, and remember every weakness around a farm. Every year, thousands of poultry owners lose birds to these unexpected raids. But in areas such as Yorkshire, Devon, and Cornwall, local farmers have developed methods based on understanding fox travel patterns. Simple yet highly effective strategies that continue to be widely used today. Last winter, a farmer near Yorkshire began noticing something unusual.
2 pounds.
Every few nights, a few more chickens would disappear. An infrared camera finally revealed the
foxes on the
culprit.
camera, calling the cubs up. So he's very much involved with looking after it.
A fully grown red fox appeared at almost exactly 3 o'clock in the morning. Instead of rushing straight toward the coop, it circled the area several times, carefully checking its surroundings. Once it was certain there was no danger, it quickly grabbed its prey and disappeared into the darkness within minutes. What worried the farmer most was the realization that the fox seemed to know the entire property by heart. While many people focused on building stronger fences or installing brighter lights, experienced farmers concentrated on something else: the fox's regular travel routes. After years of observation, they discovered that most foxes do not move randomly. Small paw prints in soft soil, flattened patches of grass, and gaps beneath fences all became valuable clues. One farmer once found a fox trapped beneath a fence, and that location helped him identify the route the animal frequently used. At that spot, he did not place bait out in the middle of a field. Instead, he positioned a specialized foothold trap directly along the fox's natural path. The trap was carefully concealed beneath a thin layer of soil and dry leaves. Every effort was made to minimize human scent and disturbance. Experienced trappers understood that foxes possess an extremely sensitive sense of smell. If they detect an unfamiliar scent or even a slight change in the ground, they may avoid the area for weeks. For several nights in a row, cameras recorded the fox following the same familiar route. It would stop, sniff the air, scan its surroundings, and continue forward. The distance between its denning area and the chicken coop remained nearly identical every night. Everything unfolded exactly as expected. On the sixth night, the decisive moment finally arrived. As the fox stepped into the location it used most often, the trap was triggered. In an instant, the animal was restrained before it could reach the poultry area. The following morning, the farmer checked the site and confirmed that the raids that had plagued the farm for months had finally come to an end. What made the result remarkable was that it did not rely on constant pursuit or endless searching. Instead, it relied on understanding the animal's behavior.
Let's let her go.
Meanwhile, the debate over predator control continues. Some people argue that foxes play an important role in controlling rodent populations in the wild. Livestock and poultry owners, however, believe they must protect their livelihoods from growing losses. Yet regardless of where people stand, most agree that foxes are among the smartest opponents farmers face. From Yorkshire to Devon, Cornwall, and rural communities across England, this quiet conflict continues night after night. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. If you enjoyed this story, please leave a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more fascinating stories in the future. Red foxes have proven that danger does not always come from strength alone. Sometimes it comes from patience, intelligence, and an extraordinary ability to adapt in the darkness. In many consecutive nights, a fox was repeatedly seen near the livestock area located behind the farm. The animal often moved quietly along the fence line before carefully approaching the poultry enclosure under the cover of darkness. With sharp observation skills and a habit of operating during quiet hours when human activity was minimal, the fox quickly identified favorable spots for hunting. After each appearance, the number of chickens inside the coop noticeably decreased, and the damage became increasingly evident over time. Direct sightings of the fox carrying prey away from the area allowed the farmer to confirm the true cause of the ongoing livestock losses that had persisted in recent weeks, turning suspicion into certainty and prompting closer monitoring of the entire perimeter. After identifying the fox as the culprit, the farmer began spending significantly more time observing its behavior around the farm. Over many days of tracking, it became clear that the fox consistently used fixed routes when approaching the livestock area. It primarily moved along fence lines, narrow dirt paths, and dense vegetation zones that provided concealment and reduced visibility. Repeated paw prints found on soft ground further confirmed its habitual travel direction and movement patterns. These collected observations became crucial data for understanding the fox's behavior, allowing the farmer to map its activity range more accurately and select optimal locations for implementing more effective control measures aimed at reducing further losses. Once the movement range of the fox had been clearly established, the farmer proceeded to set traps in areas where the animal frequently passed through. Locations near fences, narrow passages, and thick brush were prioritized because they matched the fox's natural movement tendencies and travel corridors. Carefully prepared bait was placed strategically inside the trapping systems to increase the likelihood of attracting the animal. Throughout the entire process, the surrounding environment was kept as undisturbed as possible to avoid alerting the fox or causing abnormal behavioral changes. Every trap was thoroughly checked before activation to ensure stability and readiness, forming a coordinated system designed to function effectively during the nights when the fox returned. After the trapping system was fully deployed, a group of local hunters decided to conduct a fox hunting operation in the nearby forest bordering the agricultural area. They carried legally permitted hunting tools and moved through multiple terrain zones in search of signs of the animal's presence. Forest trails, open grass patches, and dense shrub areas were carefully inspected during the search. Along the way, several paw prints and activity traces were discovered on the ground, confirming that the fox had been actively moving through the region. At one point, the animal briefly appeared near an open clearing before quickly retreating into thicker vegetation, prompting the hunters to continue tracking its routes and documenting its movement patterns for further strategic planning. In the following days, the farmer continued inspecting the installed traps and evaluating their effectiveness in real conditions. New signs indicated that the fox had begun adjusting its movement patterns after noticing disturbances around the farm area. Based on these observations, several traps were repositioned to more strategic locations to improve capture probability. The bait was also regularly refreshed to maintain its attractiveness and effectiveness over time. At the same time, the entire trapping system was carefully maintained to ensure it remained stable and unaffected by weather conditions or interference from other animals. These continuous adjustments gradually improved the overall efficiency of the control strategy and increased the likelihood of success. After many days of monitoring and fine-tuning trap placement, the final result eventually appeared. During a morning inspection, the farmer discovered that one of the traps near the rear fence had been triggered during the night. Around the site were multiple footprints and disturbed soil, clearly indicating that the fox had approached the bait before being captured. Upon closer inspection, it was confirmed that the fox had been successfully contained within the trapping system. This outcome demonstrated that selecting trap locations based on real movement patterns was highly accurate and effective. Following this event, livestock losses decreased significantly, farm conditions stabilized, and the additional 30-word reinforcement of monitoring practices further emphasized the importance of continued vigilance in preventing future wildlife intrusion incidents.
At the edge of the farm, everything began not with loud attack, but with very small signs. A few chickens disappeared beyond the fence. Soft soil held delicate footprints like strokes of a drawing, and around the coop, the scent of the wild lingered in the early morning mist like a silent warning. At first, people thought it was only a fox passing through during the night, but when the tracks reappeared day after day, always along the same narrow trail, everyone realized the animal was no longer hunting at random. It had memorized the farm. Foxes do not rely entirely on strength. They survive through patience, memory, and an almost unbelievable sense of suspicion. A new fence, an unfamiliar light, or even the faint scent of a human is enough to make them change direction. That is why cage traps placed too openly quickly become useless. The fox could circle around them, sniff for a long time, even stand several meters away to observe, before disappearing back into darkness as if it had never been there. Because of that, the control team decided to switch to a steel foothold trap, not placed openly beside bait, but positioned directly along the fox's unavoidable travel route. This kind of trap required careful calculation rather than luck before setting it. They spent the entire morning reading the signs on the ground. Small tracks, pressed deeper at the front, show that the fox often shifted its weight onto one point while crossing a low mound near the fence. A nearly invisible trail revealed itself through lightly flattened grass, where the fox had passed so many times that the ground itself seemed to remember the rhythm of its footsteps. The trap was buried beneath a thin layer of soil at the exact spot where the fox was most likely to place its paw while slipping through the narrow path. Every movement was carried out slowly and discreetly. The disturbed soil was spread back to match its original color. Dry leaves were returned as though they had never been touched, and even broken blades of grass were carefully covered so nothing looked out of place. The goal was not to create an obvious trap, but to restore the familiar landscape so perfectly that the fox would notice no change at all. With an animal this cunning, a single unfamiliar scent, a patch of fresh dirt, or even a stone lying in the wrong place could make abandon the trail forever. Night fell slowly. Wind moved through the wooden fence, carrying the sound of rustling leaves and the smell of damp earth after rain. Infrared cameras captured the fox appearing at the edge of the woods, faint like a reddish-gray shadow gliding across the grass. It did not rush forward. It stopped, lifted its head, tested the air, then stepped forward one careful stride at a time. So cautious it almost seemed to measure every distance by instinct alone. That was the moment everyone held their breath. The fox moved past the first bush, paused beside the old fence post, then continued along the familiar trail. It had traveled this route too many times, enough to believe it was safe, but that very sense of familiarity became its weakness. The instant its front paw touched the concealed ground, the trap snapped shut. There was no prolonged chaos, only a sudden movement in the darkness, and then the fox was held on the very path it had once controlled. The following morning, the control team returned while mist still covered the grass in white. The fox was secured in a condition that allowed it to be handled according to local wildlife management procedures. For those who had worked in this field for years, the goal was never to create a cruel chase, but to prevent repeated damage, protect livestock, and reduce conflict between humans and wildlife. In nature, every species has its own way of surviving, and to control an intelligent animal like a fox, humans cannot rely on force alone. They must read tracks, understand habits, respect its instinctive caution, and act at the right moment. Because sometimes, to protect a farm, the most important thing is not where the trap is placed, but how deeply people understand the invisible path of predator. A poultry farm began experiencing a problem when the number of chickens kept decreasing without any clear explanation. There are no strange noises, tracks, or eyewitnesses. Every morning, the farmer discovered that several chickens had disappeared. Although the losses were still relatively small, the repeated incidents over many days suggested that this was no longer a random occurrence. To find the answer, the entire camera system around the coop was reviewed. The footage quickly revealed a mystery that had puzzled the farm for days. The cameras showed that the culprit was a fox. What stood out was that it did not act recklessly. For several consecutive nights, the animal appeared only to observe. It moved slowly around the area, memorizing pathways, fence locations, and gaps that people rarely noticed. Only when everything became quiet did it approach its target. This cautious behavior suggested that it was not the first time the fox had searched for food near human settlements. For many farmers, foxes are among the most common predators around poultry operations. They are primarily nocturnal and usually leave their dens only when the surrounding area is quiet. If protection measures are not strong enough, chicken coops can become an attractive food source. Once a fox discovers a reliable supply of food, it often remembers a location and returns repeatedly using familiar routes. At first, many farms relied on guard dogs to strengthen their defenses. These dogs can detect unfamiliar animals from a considerable distance and immediately alert farmers when something unusual appears. Some livestock guardian breeds are even trained to patrol around barns and coops during the night. When foxes realize that guard dogs are constantly present, many choose to leave rather than risk approaching the food source. In addition, once their travel routes were identified, the farm owner began selecting suitable traps. Baits such as chicken, goat, or lamb meat were used to attract the animal's attention. On many farms, metal cage traps remain a popular option because they are easy to deploy and safe to use near residential areas. However, experienced farmers understand that the effectiveness of a trapping system depends less on the number of traps and more on where they are placed. A single trap positioned directly along the animal's travel route is often more effective than several traps placed randomly. For that reason, the most important part of wildlife control is not installing equipment, but studying behavior. Carefully observing movement patterns, appearance times, and approaches to target can significantly improve success rates while reducing both time and costs. Even after the traps were deployed, monitoring continued. Cameras operated every night to record any changes in the fox's behavior. Wild predators are highly adaptable to their surroundings. If they detect danger or encounter obstacles along familiar routes, they can change their path immediately. When that happens, trap locations must also be adjusted to maintain effectiveness. In many cases, simply making access to the chicken coop more difficult is enough to significantly reduce fox activity. This is why preventive measures are always considered more valuable than dealing with losses after they occur. A combination of continuous observation, tactical adjustments, and consistent pressure makes livestock areas far less attractive to predators. Alongside monitoring efforts, strengthening infrastructure is equally important. Fences should be buried deep enough to prevent digging. Coop doors must be securely locked before nightfall, and leftover feed should be cleaned up regularly to avoid attracting wildlife. Whether using traps, cameras, or guard dogs, the goal remains the same: reducing livestock losses while maintaining a balance between agricultural production and the surrounding environment. If you found this story helpful, leave a comment and subscribe to the channel to discover more real-world stories like this.